And looks like we had, so Supervisor Sabatier, Vice Chair Sabatier, and then we have Harry Lyons.
Yes.
Peter Windrum.
Yes.
Of course, Scott De Leon. So it looks like we have everybody here. We will go ahead and move on to consideration of items not appearing on the posted agenda, extra items. Does anybody have anything they would like to add to that?
Nope.
Going once, twice. All right, board action 3.1, approved minutes for June 7th, 2021 Mill Creek Project Committee meeting. Anybody have any corrections or needs to go over the minutes or anything of that nature? Anyone from the public? All right, bring it back to the board. Anybody, anyone can entertain a motion to do so.
Yeah, I move that we approve these June 7th minutes.
Second.
All right, motion by Harry, second by Vice Chair Sabatier. Okay, is there any opposed to this? All right, so it passes unanimously. Does that work for a for a roll call vote, or would anyone like to see a roll call vote? Or, but I just figured since everybody seems to be on board with it, we'll move forward. All right, item 4, project area parcel acquisition. So 4.1, discussion of Middle Creek parcel acquisition.
Good morning. So Cherish, as you can see, Cherish was able to solve the problem relatively quickly. So thank you very much, Cherish.
Cherish.
I learned something today. So there you go. Call Cherish is what I want. Partial acquisition. So, or parcel acquisition. I am going to turn to some notes that Marina left for me, and I apologize for the delay here. I am a little bit behind.
I'm sure your past week was like everyone else's past week, quite hectic.
It really was. And to be honest with you, I had really hoped to try to be a little better prepared for this morning, and got to work this morning and had a number of things to deal with. So between emails and by the way, Marina texted me this morning. So I think she forgot about the time difference. And so I got a text bright and early this morning about today's meeting, and I'll just kind of go through between the two things that I have here. And we're talking about parcel acquisition. So as you know, those are ongoing. We are going to be getting here in a little bit the discussion about the extension, and we are kind of operating with the assumption that we're not going to get the extension. So we're not sitting back on our heels here and hoping. We have Conser working on legal descriptions for our partial work. Marina indicates that she has talked with Paragon and Monument, and really forced or highlighted the high priority parcels. She says here that we are waiting on the signed documents on the Ortega appraisal. Apparently that was approved recently by the board, and we are working with the state on the Montanos appraisal. I am a little familiar with that. Montanos countered, and we went back to the state with the counter, and my understanding is that the state didn't accept their counter, and so I apologize, I don't know what we're doing after the state has rejected that counter. I know that I am a little concerned about the state's rejection of that of the counteroffer. We oftentimes use a 10% administrative adjustment in our right-of-way acquisitions for road projects. That's kind of an industry standard, that 10%. So my recollection is Montanos's counter was 10%. So I don't know if we're going to be pushing back against the state and saying, look, some of the other departments in the state allow 10%, like Caltrans. So I'll need to get the answer to that and perhaps get you an interim or an intermediate update between now and next month. But I know that the state.
What does that
didn't approve
10% represent in money wise?
I think it was around, he had asked for an increase per acre. I think it was about 100,000-ish.
So the increase was 100,000?
His offer was a little over $1 million. So it was a little over 100,000 is and I apologize, I don't have the number, but that's my recollection of it.
Okay. What I would like to, sorry to cut you off. Let me know if you want me to wait till the end. What I'd like is to say, if you can't get movement fairly quickly at the state level, let's go ahead and bring this back to, bring it to the Board of Supervisors to approve using other fund sources to get this moving. That way we can, he's interested, he's talking to us, let's get it done.
And that's one of the options on the table. I believe, and I appreciate your comment because I think that it kind of jogged my memory. My recollection is that the discussion I had with Marina and Celia was, well, what if the county pays the additional amount, and will the state agree to just fund the appraised value, and then the county can pay the additional? And so yeah, I think that that's probably the quickest resolution to this. And again, I'll confirm this with Marina, and we'll get you an update to the whole group between now and the meeting next month. But I'm pretty certain that's the direction we wanted to go. Let me see if there's anything else.
Hopefully it doesn't add a whole lot of bureaucratic processes like having to do 2 separate contracts at the same time, because the state doesn't want to be involved with one, but at the same time Montanos wants both to be signed. So hopefully it's not as complicated as it possibly could be.
No, it will be. I can assure you of that. It will be.
Whoever Tomasio Anderson is, I don't know what the last name is, but if you can mute yourself, I'm hearing some background noise, which is kind of
just call myself.
Okay.
It's on my
Thank you.
Oh, there we go.
Some other priority parcels that Marina has been, and she did this with Jeremy Need. Some other high priority parcels that she really is pushing on are Sealy, the Christensen property, and Sao Cho.
Seichow.
Seichow. Thank you. I knew I was going to butcher that. Again, those are we're pursuing things as if they're the extension request doesn't exist. So that's about what I have for now. I apologize for not having every detail, and we'll get you additional information on the Montanos as soon as I have it.
Scott?
Yes.
I met with Upper Lake Tribe last week, and they have an area that they're looking at, and they're kind of worried about the zoning of it, and want to talk with anybody like us from this committee, and especially I think the Water Resources Department, because it has to do with the zoning. They want to make sure that when they put it into, I think they're trying to get it into trust or something like that. They don't want to. From what I understand, when they bought their property, and the county asked, they didn't want to sell it, but because they want to allow it to do what it's supposed to do, according to Sherry, without having any effect to the project. They didn't want to hinder the project. So apparently they have an issue with the property that they just recently bought, and so they wanted to go ahead and talk with someone from Water Resources.
Okay, well, I'm certain that Marina or I can facilitate that. Be happy
Okay,
to.
well, I could set it up too. I told her that maybe we can go onto one of their Zoom meetings or something, kind of like what we did with the other tribe. And that would be, she said that would probably be the most ideal way, efficient, quickest and all that. So we can kind of get on the same page.
Okay. Do you want us to set something up?
What I can do is I can get them to set it up, and then I can get the information to you like we did last time, and then we'll be all set like last time.
Okay. All right. I'll make a note to expect that.
Okay. All right. Do we have any other questions or comments about parcel acquisition?
I'm wondering if Scott has more general information on the rest of the properties. How are the, I can't think of the term right now, the plats and legals going? I know that was one of our hurdles to prohibiting the appraisal process. How are we doing on the rest of the properties?
Now, those are coming along. We have developed a format for those. It's going to require some land surveying to establish the 1331 line physically on the ground. And so Conser's working on that, and that'll all be done likely through his GPS system. So, but yeah, that we're going to have to do the physical surveying to locate the line on the ground. And then the legal description will be based on, we're not going to set corners, and the legal description will be include terms such as more or less, which is an acceptable format. We've used it many times, and we have examples of projects that the title company has done insurance on, and that's the format that we're going to use. And it's not we had tried to do something based on mapping and using the maps for the 100-year flood event, which established the boundary of the property or the project. I'm sorry. In order to ensure title insurance for that, they want that line defined, as well as for the appraisal. The appraiser, when establishing the value of what's being taken, they want to be able to have a line on the ground to be able to count trees, know the exact acreage of what's being impacted and what isn't. So unfortunately, we're having to do that, but Conser's on it.
And say that last comment again, the last statement. Who's on it?
Conser.
Is that who we're contracting with to get that done? Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
I was going to ask you if any of this is being done in-house, because I know that I'm concerned about our surveyor, especially in the near future. Okay, so that's good. That's good.
Yeah. No, we're using a land surveyor. They're the local land surveyor. They have experience with not only this project but many others. He has the technology, he has the GPS equipment to be able to establish elevation. His stuff is very accurate. So he has all the tools to be able to do it.
And he has all of the properties
Yes.
on his list to get done. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're following, as we mentioned before, we're following the list of partial acquisitions that were identified in the agreement that we have with the state. So before, we were looking at adding some parcels there, and we've taken those out to include Sealy, for example, is one that we were considering a partial acquisition, and that's a full acquisition. So we've reduced his scope, added full acquisition to some of the others, but we're following the agreement, which was what was recommended to us by Jeremy. Was he strongly recommended that we do exactly what the agreement said.
Let's see here. Do
I
we
think
have any,
Peter wants to say something.
Peter? Okay,
No.
go ahead, Peter.
Just a quick question, just to make sure I understand. The surveys apply to the partial acquisitions,
Yes.
but not to the total acquisitions. Is that
No.
correct?
Just the
Partial.
partial.
Yeah. Yeah. Partial parcels. That's a tongue twister.
It can get
All right.
confusing if we don't
Thank you.
make sure.
Go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, I told some rabid aggressive fans of this project that we had 2 surveyors working on this. Is that the case or not? So
Well, so Jeremy had offered his surveyor, and because we were planning on a higher number of partial acquisitions. His surveyor is used to working in areas where there are property corners everywhere and things are monumented. Lake County is not monumented, and so hiring the local firm is a much better solution. So we have a very good surveyor working for us right now.
that works for me.
Okay, anyone from the committee have any more concerns? So I can open it up for the public. All right. Hearing none, Mary Jo Velasquez.
I have 2 questions. First one's for Supervisor Crandall. So did you indicate the new properties that were purchased by the tribe, they're trying to get put into the trust?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what they're doing. I'm just going off of memory. They may be doing that. I'm not sure exactly, but I know that the area that they're speaking of, they don't want to mess with it to halt the project or put any type of hindrances on there. It might be trust, it might be something else. I know that they just recently purchased some land up by Upper Lake, and I don't think it's in the zone per se. I just know that she wanted to talk about this. There's an old stream, and I remember it. It's I don't have the map on me exactly, but it's right behind the restaurant and that one area that the Nobles own. It's that area, and there's a spot that connects, and they want to make sure that it doesn't affect the project, and so they just want to talk with the.
But they have property that's going to be underwater, right? And they're still not willing to sell those?
I'm not sure. I think they own it already, so I'm not sure what's really happening.
But they
I
were
think
not.
that's why we need to meet with them, because I couldn't answer their question. I said, I can't answer that. I don't know how to answer it. So let's set a meeting and get on the same page, the same way we did with Robinson.
So I just don't understand. They maybe it was Robinson I'm thinking of, but somebody, one
you're
tribe
thinking of
bought property that was in the project and returned the response asking for willing sellers, saying they were not willing. Are those?
That was Robinson. We met with them last week or a couple of weeks back. This is Upper Lake, and they're just talking about an area
so what
that
happened with Robinson?
when are we
Are they
going
willing
on?
sellers now?
I don't even think we covered that in that meeting per se. I just know we just discussed with them.
So Robinson is still unwilling sellers. Yes or no? That's all.
We didn't establish that in that meeting. I don't remember coming up with establishing that in that meeting. Do you, Bruno or Scott?
We weren't looking for any action to be taken. We wanted them to make sure they were aware of what actions we were taking and where we were heading. And I'm sure that a further conversation is needed, most likely not in a meeting scenario, but more similar to like the letter that was sent to them where they said they weren't a willing seller, where now we can approach them again in that same scenario saying, do you want to sell, or do we need to somehow have a letter of intent or some letter of support saying you want to keep it, but you're going to be a part of the project as well. I don't know how that works with the state, but we got to figure out how to move forward from there. It was more of a presentation that we gave, more so than an open discussion to change their minds in a public way.
Okay, so officially there's still
No change as far as we're concerned until further notice.
And so then my other question for anybody who might know is, what is the status of the returns of the letters asking for willing sellers? It was really vague that you'd only gotten like 10% back a while ago. And have you gotten any more willing sellers? Or have you identified some unwilling sellers? Because you were last time you hadn't had much back, and you talked about calling them, reaching out to them again to prod them. Is there any?
Yes,
change in
and I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question, but I will take a note. I see Cherish has her hand up, so as the person who handles the majority of the stuff that comes in the office, perhaps she has some better answer here.
I haven't received any extra ones back from our previous meeting. We did send out an additional letter though, kind of explaining the process, not only to the people that we already received letters back, but other ones who we haven't received anything back from. And then from there, we are going to try to reach out to people. As far as I haven't reached out to anybody, but I just know that that's where we were. We sent out an additional letter to try to help maybe explain what it was that we're doing.
It just seems to me that if we're pretending we're not going to get an extension, some personal contact might help if you've got a mechanism to do it.
Yes, we do. We have a right-of-way agent here, and yeah, that's a real priority for us. She's not on the meeting today because she's actually working on getting prepared and working on other things. So to start going to property owners and saying, what's the problem? What can we do? What questions do you have for us? So yes, we're already making strides to have that personal contact. And I frankly, I think it's way more important to have a county person who's local, has a recognized name, going and knocking on doors and talking to our property owners here than somebody from out of the area. So we're preparing for that.
So hopefully by next month.
Yes.
Okay.
Mary Jo, my discussion was not with Robinson per se, it was with Sherry, the tribal chair. She had asked actually about a lot line adjustment. My comment earlier was referring to, I don't know if they're going into trust, if they're building or what they're doing. I just know they talked about a lot line adjustment and talking with water resources. And so that I'm not sure if they're putting it into trust for what they're doing. I just know that they wanted to look at a lot line adjustment so it wouldn't affect the project. And then with Robinson, we really just wanted to establish a relationship and get on the same page because they have a new leadership, and we're hoping to get into a position where they understand what we're doing and maybe that they would be willing sellers with knowing more of the information. And they actually have two people here as well that are on the call that were in that meeting as well.
I'd also like to note that the Upper Lake Tribe did not send their letter back saying that they were unwilling to sell. So in my mind, that they're still just trying to figure out the project, and which I think is great considering they didn't just send it back saying they're unwilling sellers. So that's a positive to look at, especially with the Upper Lake Tribe, because we did send that letter out to them.
So for Robinson, the lot line adjustment would be at the 100-year flood level?
Listen, no, it's Upper Lake that wants the lot line adjustment.
Oh,
Robinson is the one that sent back their letters and said that they weren't willing to sell. They needed more clarification. Upper Lake didn't send it back, and that's why I'm hoping that we can set those meetings here within the next couple of weeks. That way we can get on the same page with what they truly want and what they want to do.
Okay. Corolla has her hand.
Corolla?
Yeah, hi, this is Corolla, Water Resources Manager at Robinson Rancheria. And I was present at that meeting when the committee came and spoke with Robinson's council. And it was not there to force for any answers. It was strictly an update and education session to let Robinson know and the new leadership understand what's going on with this project. And I know that that's kind of where their concern lies more so, is really getting more in depth into this project and what's going on, because the fact there is trust property and fee property involved. There's a couple of different entities involved from federal to state. So Robinson would really like to gain an understanding of what all that means and what the project going forward, and the surveying lines are critical too, as to where we're looking at the actual floodline marks. So a lot of those conversations and understandings need to happen. And that's what council is working for and hoping to achieve, so they can move forward and make a good decision on those properties as a government.
So are these properties on the list for the surveyor to work on?
You would have to ask Scott DeLeon.
I am.
Mhm.
One of the drawbacks to when you get me sitting in for Marina is I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of the details. And so I'm not trying to avoid your question. I don't know the answer to that, but I made a note, and I appears I have got a fairly lengthy mid-month report due after this meeting. I've already gotten 2 notes here of things I need to answer, and so I apologize. I'll get that answer to you.
And while my answer is not concrete, I would suggest that if we sent letters, then most likely they are on the list of properties to be surveyed and appraised and everything else.
Yes.
So.
I didn't know, since their most recent answer was not interested, would they go on a list?
Right.
If they're
Corolla
not
has her
willing.
hand up. Maybe she can answer that. Corolla, did you still have your hand? Did you have your hand up for this? Or
Yes. And the non-interested is more along the lines, as I stated, education pieces. We need to understand really what's going on over here on these properties, what lines we're looking at cutting, what properties are going to be covered, and what that looks like. I know there's been further conversation on raising some land area for the casino parking lot. There's a lot of questions that Robinson has as leaders that to make a decision now would really not be fruitful for them. So the answer is not no. It's just we need more information and more understanding as to what the processes are happening around us, and are they actually happening on our land too? And then also Army Corps' piece and what their piece is, and what benchmarks they have for the county to meet before they start taking over their process of actually looking at land and cultural resources and the environmental report in regards to flooding this land. So there's a lot of information that still needs to be delved out there before a good decision can be made by the tribe, at least in my opinion. And that's what my recommendation is to them, is we have more information to gather before that decision can be made. So, and we're working with the county, Mary Jo, on this. So there is conversation going back and forth. As they said, the committee did come in and present to the tribe, to the council, and identified a lot of things that are happening. And I know there were some questions that came up from that. And so we're moving forward on those action items and trying to get some of these things solved and answers.
Oh, I understand 100%.
Mhm.
My concern is the mechanism of this funding requires willing sellers. And if they're officially not a willing seller, my question is, if part of the information they're going to need is the survey results. So if they're officially not a willing seller, can they still be surveyed? Because to me, that would be a baseline information the tribe would need.
Good question.
Right. And I should clarify my answer to you. What I don't know is the parcel that we're talking about a partial acquisition, or is it a full acquisition? If it's a partial, then it would be subject to being surveyed, because we would be just taking that portion that is lakeward of 1331. And so that would be the line that we would establish as part of the survey. So if that's on the list as a partial acquisition, then it will be surveyed. I just don't know the answer to that. And that's the thing I'll get clarified.
Okay, thank you.
okay. Any other questions? All right.
Quick question. I know that in the past we've asked for data, and I want to say that even whether Marina is here or not, typically it's a verbal report that we receive. Is there a spreadsheet somewhere with all of the properties and then an X to show that the survey was done, an X to show that the appraisal was done, an X to show that it was submitted to the state? If that exists already, if that can just be supplied to the membership so that we can at least see the progress, and if that could be a part of each and every meeting as we move forward so we can see the progression, that I think would be very useful for us to not have that maybe as many questions and be able to better understand the overall progress that we are making on a month-to-month basis.
You bet. Yeah, no, I'd be surprised if that didn't exist.
Be surprised too.
But I like the idea of having it updated and presented as part of the information for this meeting. So I'm taking notes as we're going. I'm sure Cherish is as well, but I'm taking notes for specific tasks and things that I need to do or pass along to Marina when she gets back. So thank you for that.
And if that also can let us know if it's a willing seller, because this group maybe needs to start talking right now about what are we doing with the not willing sellers. Because we still, if we're going to move forward as a whole, we can't move forward with only 70% of the properties. We need to move forward once we've acquired all of those. And what's our process? What are our alternatives to using the state funding to obtain the rest of those properties? And so that should be a conversation we have as we get a little bit more of the aggregate data of who is willing and who is unwilling.
Cherish?
I know for me personally, I have the willing sellers list. I have that myself. So I could probably just update that so it shows where we're at on appraisals, plats and legals and all of that. So I can kind of maybe merge the two documents together. But I can tell you for me personally, I have something for the willing sellers. So I can do that.
Thank you. All right. Anything else on this item? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item 5.1, discuss updates and next steps with project area property maintenance.
So I know we're having some issues with garbage dumping, and I know that's an ongoing battle. I've heard Marina and others talk about projects and things that they want to do, fencing, more security. There's some demolition that needs to get done, and the RFP for that, I believe, is being developed. So it's kind of a brief update, not a whole lot of detail, but I know that all of those things are being worked on. So I would think that the demolition and would be done this fall. So it'd be something that we'll get out to bid and get that taken care of. As far as security, I don't know the status of that, but I do know the demo would be something we try to get done here pretty quickly. There's studies and different things. There's a whole process to that. You got to get kind of an appraisal of the home with respect to any lead, asbestos. There needs to be a survey, and then depending on the findings of that, then it gets more complicated. You have to have a specialized crew come in and remove that, or if the contractor you hire has the necessary licenses for that, then that material gets removed separately and it's got to be disposed of separately. So there's a whole process to it.
And it costs a whole lot more.
Unfortunately, if they do find it, yes.
Yeah.
But we've done it before. Most of the properties that we've had to demo there have had some type of material that was required special handling. So we've done it before, and it's just a matter of getting RFPs put together.
Peter?
one of the ideas that we're kind of talking about and mulling about in the coalition is the possibility of developing a enthusiastic group of friends of Middle Creek, much like the state parks have their volunteer organizations that are hugely helpful, and to do such things as help on keeping the place clean. Talking about reforestation, because that's part of the overall project in the Army Corps' design. For example, planting oak trees on the lands that the district already has and that are open. So this is very, very much in the preliminary stages, but a group of, and I think there will be a lot of people who will be interested in doing that so that they can help the project, utilize, not have everything, provide free labor, I guess, as part of it, and help generate further public support for the project. I simply toss that out because we're in the beginning stages of thinking about it, but something that may be really beneficial in the long run.
Okay. Bruno?
You mentioned building fences. Can you elaborate on that? Because I'm not, in my mind, it doesn't quite make sense to build something and then eventually it gets flooded. Is that, are those temporary? Are those in areas where it's above ground anyway, so it won't ever be an hindrance to the flow of the water? Because I would prefer to look at other solutions than having to build things that eventually need to be taken away. I know that I am working with Lars on the Waste Management Task Force on an illegal dumping ordinance, as well as some other activities. Right now, he has, using cannabis taxes, acquired multiple trailers with tools that can be borrowed by volunteer groups that want to do cleanup. So that could be something that can be implemented in what Peter's already talking about, where the group itself doesn't have to acquire those types of tools and equipment. They can just go ahead and sign up with the county and borrow those things. And I know that we're talking also about putting up camera systems in order to catch people coming in with full loads and catch them coming out. There's not too many ins and outs of that area. And so maybe that's something that could be implemented, and that might be useful in the future for when it has been fully acquired, it has been fully developed, but on dry years, such as now, it would still allow people to come in and dump, because that's something I think we still need to protect for the future as well. So whatever we do, if we can think of how is it implemented for the future rather than being temporary, that's something I'd prefer looking into, even if it costs a little bit more money.
Well, certainly appreciate that additional information, and we'll certainly, whatever we do, coordinate with Lars and make sure that that we aren't doing something that's counterproductive. And yeah, it would be temporary in nature for sure. It's just to try to control the areas that people are habitually using to get rid of their stuff. We've made a lot of it inaccessible just by virtue of a lot of the vegetation that's grown back. That whole section that along the road that goes back to the pump house there, for example, along the east boundary of the or the east road there, used to be pretty bad, but the berry bushes have made it pretty difficult to get back in there, which is great. So, but yes, anything we would do would be temporary. But I appreciate the additional information. We sure work with Lars.
Hey, Daniela, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Director DeLeon was saying earlier, because I've been doing a lot of the maintenance work, and we have done the asbestos inspection and we got the report back for the Torrance Visual property. But as far as the dumping goes, it's every week since the beginning of April, I've been going out to check, and there's always some sort of different dump site. There were 4 big trailers worth of garbage that were removed, and that had to be done out of house. Like Water Resources does not have the capability or big enough equipment to move that kind of stuff, but that's taken care of. But there's other small areas where people continually dump, and that's just out on Reclamation Road where Director DeLeon was just talking about, and it's people going either around gates or through the gates. So something temporary like K-rails or just a
K-rails are
temporary
good.
fence to block those areas out that we see them, that they're going on. And then there's areas where we could mount cameras too, which would be great. And I've also, I think 2 or 3 times have come across citizens that just are walking out there, and they've told me that they take garbage bags out on occasion to do some garbage pickup, but they see the difference. So
And the more we acquire, the more maintenance is required too.
exactly. So I'm trying to get out there as often as I can to make sure that they at least see a county vehicle and the presence of the county being out there. So maybe they'll be scared away. And I've talked to Lieutenant Pascal from Fish and Game, and he's sent out patrols out that way too. So hopefully that'll stop people from going out there as often.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela.
All right, any more discussion on item 5.1?
And just to elaborate on Daniela's point, I'm absolutely a fan of the K-rails, just because they can be moved around, not easily, but they can be moved around to a different site at once something is more secured and permanent. So I'm not against using that as temporary fencing.
Okay. Excellent. All right, so we'll move on to item 6, California Department of Water Resources, and 6.1 is agreement number 12946-46000, 12946 quarterly report 5 and 6. And I think that was included in the emails as well.
Yes. Yep, we included those in the materials for today's meeting, so those were submitted.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments, or questions, or concerns about the quarterly reports? Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, not a concern at all, but just simply to say that I very much applaud the contact diaries that are done. Those are done by Paragon. And I believe those are attached, that shows every contact that has happened. It's just outstanding. And all I can say is I sincerely wish that Monument would do the same. And I think that Paragon just does these, they come in I'm told, Marina suggested they come in every week or so, and these are cover an earlier period of time. But I think those are really excellent.
Okay, he's on. I was just going to ask him. Thanks, Robert. Let's see. Any other discussion about 6.1? Hearing none. Let's move on to 6.2. Request for grant extension.
Sorry, I'm taking notes.
Okay.
Well, as the board knows, we prepared a grant extension request. Your board did a letter of support for that action. Marina indicates to me here that that extension request was sent to the state last week. And so, it's now kind of a wait and see, or start pressuring not pressuring, but start making requests to our state representatives to keep them appraised of our request, and see whatever help they can send our way. But it has been submitted to the state.
And just to add to that, I did receive word from John Ferreira, the Chief of Staff from Cecilia Aguiar Curry's office, that they are in conversation with the State Water Resource Board to, maybe not board, but the State Water Resource Department on what other potential is out there. I did get the good news that he said they found the funding for the lake, which I'm assuming is for the Blue Ribbon Committee. And he's hoping to have that same level of success with getting us further extension than just the standard that we were looking at.
Excellent.
And my strategy is not to be a monkey on his back. In a matter of a week or two, I will get back to him and just kind of check in and see how things are going. We still have a little bit of time, but I want to make sure to keep him on task and not be too much of a bother at the same time.
All right. Any other thoughts or ideas or concerns about 6.2 grant extension? Anyone from the public? All right. We'll move on to item 7, Army Corps. Discuss updates and next steps in communications with Army Corps.
Yeah, I received a very beautiful letter, copy of this letter of intent that we send yearly to the Army Corps. It looked good, and as you know, it emphasized the progress we've been making on property acquisition, and also, as outlined by Bruno, it told the Army Corps, hey, we're ready. At our end, we're ready in terms of funding to take seriously movement into the design phase of this project. So that's been done. And then I was going to ask Marina about another letter that we had worked on, and that was to our congressmen to urge them to lobby the Army Corps, the Secretary of the Army and the Chief of Engineers for moving us onto the work plan. I haven't seen that letter. Maybe it went out. If Marina's coming back tomorrow, I'll talk to her about that letter. But that letter urging our congressmen to lobby the Army Corps of Engineers was, well, it was sort of poo-pooed by Ian Hart, who's the assistant to Garamendi. He felt and still feels that the work plan, which lists the cultural work and the environmental work that is needed to get us to the record of decision, that's an Army Corps, an internal concern. But nevertheless, I was hoping to get this letter to the congressman's staff. One good thing that came out of my communication with Ian was that he would like to have a meeting with us on the main lobbying effort for Water Resource Development Act money. This is the main appropriation of funds for this project. And so I wanted the committee's permission to work with Ian and try to get some subset of our committee to meet with Ian and brainstorm about how we approach the appropriation battle. So that's what he wants from us. And that's what I want from you, is to go ahead.
Okay. I think that, is there any other questions, or did you need that, or you want us to?
I just assumed that the committee would want me to do that, and I'd go ahead and talk with him. I guess it would be a Zoom conference of some sort, and I would think maybe 3 of us and Ian and perhaps 2 from his staff. I was thinking of a 6-person crew getting together and our end being informed about what the congressman's staff knows about the Water Resources Development Act.
And I think Robert Gary has a question. I think it's regarding this, right, Robert?
Yeah, I think with the Army Corps is just wanting to find out whether or not the 404, or is there going to need to be a 404 permit for this? Because it is actually, with the waterway, and with that, the tribes are actually a part of the Section 106 due to that. And so just want to make sure that those cultural resources under those permitting processes, that, the tribes are a part of this, so.
Go ahead, Supervisor Sabatier.
So I'm all for having that meeting. Choose your three, I would suggest. But at the same time, I'm wondering if part of the meeting conversation can be about the drought. This project expands the acre feet of water retainment. I'm not using the right term, but you know what I'm saying. The amount of water in the lake, because it expands the footprint. This is for water storage as well. As the water flows through and goes into the lake, and we know that 60% of the people in Lake County drink directly from the lake after it's treated, that this would help us in a drought situation. There's drought money coming out of the federal government. Is there a way to attach this project directly to the drought right now?
Robert, was your question answered?
No. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because we're talking about Army Corps, whether the 404 has been applied for. Is that something that still needs to happen? And that actually opens up the 106 process, I think, for the tribes to be consulted with. I can say, and just speaking for Habematol, is that Middle Creek is inundated with cultural sites that are actually on on the creek itself. So if we're talking about either diverting or holding water in a certain area, the studies that need to happen, I think, of that area, have they already been done to see what are going to be the impacts, I think, to some of those sites that are there right off the creek. So,
This work is central and the most forward on the top of the list of that work plan. So it's what the county has paid. I better phrase this, but paid off SHPO to
that's
get,
not a good thing. That's not a good thing to say.
So anyway, the county has come up with funds to be in balance with SHPO so that we can go forward with the Army Corps. And every time I talk with the Army Corps, I urge them to connect with the tribes. And but the fact is they have these cultural concerns.
Right. Right.
But I'm not hip to the 404 and the 106. These are new numbers for me.
Yeah. Well, I think if the Army Corps is being I guess communicated to as far as with this project, then we should be hearing something definitely from the Army Corps due to 106 notifications. And so I'm just making sure that we're following that process, because her name is Sarah West. She's actually the tribal liaison for the Army Corps of Engineers. And so if there's anything that needs to happen, I think with any projects that deal with waterways and notifying the tribes, she's the lady that's in our area. I'm actually working with her right now on a project over by Rodman Slough. So it's definitely something that, we want to make sure that, we get that notification, or the tribes get that notification, I guess, from the Army Corps, if that's our process.
Right.
Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may speak to that, what you refer to is highest priority to the Corps, and always has been in the context of this project. And it's now currently a requirement that all of that, the environmental impact and the cultural impacts, be updated, because it's now been too long ago since those issues were addressed. It's a very, very high priority and a contractual obligation, and it's recognized. And I think this is important perhaps for the other folks in the committee to understand maybe a little bit better. And that is that the negotiations and decisions on these topics are done between the Army Corps and the tribe. And while the district has a vital interest in all of this, when we're dealing with the tribe and the federal government, it's there, as Carlos pointed out, that's a relationship that is direct between these two governments. And so anyway, Robert, everybody's acutely aware of that you reference, and no one less so than the Corps itself, because it's set forth contractually in these documents that we work with. So, and of course, from our standpoint, it's of utmost importance because it's necessary for the project to go forward.
Right. And I think that with that said, it's just important to know that the project really can't go forward, I think, until we get, or when Army Corps, I guess, takes on their portion of the process, they'll notify us, and then they'll let, as far as for the permits that need to be done, that, all the concerns are met before those permits are even given, which is good, because we just want to make sure that, the sites that are along the creek or anything that have potentially, that can potentially, impact sites that are there, how those are mitigated. So, as
Right.
we're looking forward to hearing something from the Corps.
That's good.
And just a quick question. The NEPA has not been done for the project because we haven't done the specifics of the project yet. And
Right.
this specifically is a part of the NEPA process, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
That needs to be corrected too. Yes, NEPA has been done for the project, but it was done a long time ago. So the requirement is that it be updated.
Gotcha.
The NEPA reports are, thick documents in connection with this project.
Yeah.
But there's an updating requirement.
Okay. Because I know that I've been dealing with NEPA over on the BLM land next to the landfill for doing fire mitigation, and cultural and biological and all those things are absolutely a must before anyone can give us the green light.
Yeah.
And
Kroll asked where the NEPA, there's a place we can get the NEPA reports, and I think, are those in the initial document that was made back?
Right.
That's in that, yeah.
it's in the final approved EIR, but both
Yeah.
of them, state and federal, it's cleared both of those. So, and there's copies of those documents are in the Water Resources Office. And I don't know that it's all been downloaded or not. If it hasn't, it should be. Those were done before there was scanning, almost.
I know the tribe has one.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
in my old office. I know that for sure because I left it there for them
Yeah.
to have one.
Right.
At Robinson. So
It's 2 volumes. Yeah, it's significant.
Light reading.
Light reading. Eddie, can I
yes, go ahead, Peter.
backtrack to this subject about a letter to the members of Congress that were approved last time of our last meeting, but I think probably haven't been sent out. The significance of those letters, it's really, really important because the letter is addressed to both members of Congress, both Garamendi and Thompson. And that's the crucial link because their staffs want to work together. I know Mike Thompson is extremely concerned right now about the levels of algae in the lake. And so the idea is that the staffs want to work together, but let's get this letter, which kind of in effect is directed to both members of Congress so that their staffs can follow up based on that. And rather than trying to deal with members of Congress individually, Clear Lake is split between these 2 districts. Mike Thompson's office, they said they kind of used to be in a situation where they deferred to Congressman Garamendi because this project's in his district. But now the attitude is that because the project affects all of Clear Lake in both districts, they need to work in tandem. It's not just a case of deferring to one member of Congress to the other. That's the position that's now been taken by Congressman Thompson and members of his staff. And again, just to emphasize, Brad Honoraus told me the 2 staffs work well together. So let's keep them working together. And let's get that letter out, please.
All right. Anything else on item 7 for Army Corps of Engineers? All right.
Just to say that I will call Marina and I'll take care of that. I'll connect with Marina about that letter. And Robert, I'll call you and I'll share with the Sarah West my recent communications with the Corps because they send me information and promises of what they'll eventually do, and she needs to know that.
Yeah, because we'll be the ones actually getting the notifications from her. You know what I mean, as far as for anything that has to deal with cultural. So great, appreciate it.
All right, thank you. So now on to PG&E, discussion updates and next steps in communications with PG&E. I had a talk with Melinda Rivera last week and got her up to speed of our last discussion with Allison. She's willing to have a meeting with us aside from this ad hoc committee meeting. So would like to lock down some times with some folks.
Perfect.
Yeah, so she's willing to, and I'd like to, I put her up to speed with everything we've talked to with PG&E about the 600,000, about the 600,000 for the, is it 600,000 or is it 6 million?
$5 million, I think, was the approximate.
Yeah, that's right. It's 5 million. I don't know why I'm saying 600. It's because the 100,000 that we're supposed to, I guess, put forward for the initial project assessment.
Yeah.
And so she's willing to meet with us, and I probably will set that up here, set her up with Marina, and let's get something lined up with her so that we can get on the same page.
So I wasn't quite sure when to express this, but I think this is a good time. We know what our deadline is for the property acquisition, and I don't want to slow it down by adding more, but at the same time, if we don't seriously get started on PG&E and seriously get started on Caltrans and everything else that needs to be done, because even with the Army Corps, if we don't have the highway ready, there's no way that we can complete the project. We need to make sure that there's either a seawall or an overpass or whatever needs to happen on that area, and same with PG&E. And I think that we need to get serious about putting that deposit down to get PG&E started, and doing the same thing with Caltrans, because they're not fast. They've got a lot of tasks on their hands, and if we start asking them post property acquisition, we can sit here for another 5 to 10 years possibly without any actual movement from those agencies, which means that we can't really move forward as a whole. So I would like to, by next month at the very latest, come up with a plan on how it is that we're going to do that, what our timelines look like, what the budgets need to look like, because we need to be serious about having those conversations and taking those inquiries to a further step than just knowing that they're waiting on us with some money. I think we need to show up with some money, and we need to get them moving.
I agree with that. Sorry, one second.
And I know that's probably around a minimum of $1 million, just because that's $800,000 to at least be appropriated for the Army Corps to move forward, and that price might change, but that's what it was a while ago. And it's $200,000 for PG&E because it was $100,000 for the transition line, whatever. The low voltage lines and the high voltage lines, two different designs that they needed to do. So that was $200,000. And Caltrans, I don't think we ever got a cost as far as what it would take for us to get started on design. So I think that I think we need to look at some subcommittees to discuss specifically with those two other agencies. I think Harry Lyons has been on top of it with Army Corps. But we need them to, we need the other stuff to be ready as well as the Army Corps. It can't be one after the other. It has to be a very simultaneous plan that comes together, and it can't wait for us to be done with the property acquisition.
Peter?
Yeah, following up on that, when one reads the documents related to the Army Corps' scope of work and the project, it's very apparent that they have a very, very direct participation in the tower line realignment process, the highway, and the rest. In other words, ultimately, when it comes to engineering, the Corps is the one who calls the shots because it's their approval that is required. So it's kind of one of these chicken and egg situations. We've got to get the Corps ready, willing, and able to start doing their engineering work in conjunction with PG&E and the state, so it all merges because it's a single project. And that's kind of where we are, I say, and in connection with PG&E. And so once again, it's emphasizing getting money to the Corps and them to pick up their part of this
If I'm hearing you correctly, then we need to lock down the Corps first, but then also have the other funding sources for PG&E and Caltrans available.
Yeah, we need the engineers for all three of them working together, essentially. And we have to, and the challenge with the Corps is that they seem as if they won't take a step until they get some money from Congress or it's part of their work plan, one thing or another. So that's kind of, because PG&E won't put its towers in any place unless the Corps approves them. You know, that's the long and the short of it. And we've got 2 power lines, which one I didn't even know about until recently. It cuts right through the middle of the project, and that's in addition to the very high KV lines and towers. So there's a lot to be done there, but it's all involves the Corps' engineering as well.
Thank you, Peter. And so Supervisor Sabatier, did you want to develop those subcommittees now today?
Well, it sounds to me like we just need to do what Harry already offered, which was for all of us to meet in order to try to get things moving and grease the wheels over in Congress. But I think that you and I, EJ, need to work with Scott to bring it to the board to figure out how we can have something allocated so that we're very serious when we approach the Army Corps or our Congress. Because if we don't have anything allocated, then we're asking them to do something for something we haven't done yet either. And so I think that that's something that we should at least show on paper. Look, it's allocated, it's there, it's ready to go. We're ready to pay you for the design process. It doesn't mean we paid them, but at least it's set aside as like an escrow account type of deal. Got it.
All right.
Can I go back to something that Peter said, and perhaps I've been out of the loop or whatever, but as he was talking and describing the Corps having some say in both the state highway issue and PG&E, did something change with the LERDs, Peter? Because there was a time when the Corps made this unilateral decision that the raising of the highway, the bridge, and we haven't talked about the bridge, the new bridge that's going to be required on the Nisos-Cerne cutoff, and PG&E were all LERDs, and the responsibility of the local entity. So do they? I guess I'm curious. Does the Corps really have that much influence or say over what we do with those guys?
I think the answer is yes, as to those, insofar as the engineering is concerned and the design. What the gist of the Corps' position is, we aren't going to pay for it, but we are going to tell you how it has to be built, and that's essentially what it says.
That's interesting.
And there's and I can go back because I read that on that documentation. It's in there, but yeah, no question that they set the criteria that has to be met before power lines get realigned and highways get raised and so forth.
All right, thank you.
So if you don't mind, I like to put expectations. EJ and Scott, can we all get together and try to aim for July 27th to put that on the agenda? I mean, it'd be a simple request, and there's no agreement that comes to it other than it's allocated for something that would be agreed upon when used once we get to the part of actually spending the money. But right now, it would just at least show in writing to the Corps that we have the money set aside.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be happy to work with you. I don't, if you need Water Resources to sponsor that or just sign on and say, yeah, we're supportive of that, whatever you need us to do.
Well,
Again.
mainly I just need your expertise and that we're not doing the wrong thing in what we're proposing. I think I know exactly what we need to do, but I think that your knowledge of the budget and your knowledge of moving money around and allocating money is going to help us.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to work with you on that.
Okay.
If you want on the 27th, we've kind of got ourselves in a little trouble up here by not meeting board deadlines, agenda deadlines. So I'm pretty mindful that the deadline for the 27th is this Wednesday at 5. So
Well, I won't say it too loud, but I get in trouble more often than you do by breaching that deadline, but we'll get it on there.
okay, yeah, well,
It'll have my name on it and EJ's.
Yeah, well, you could give me the blame so you don't get scolded this time,
Yeah.
Bruno. I'll take it.
We'll keep you out of trouble.
you two have a little bit more horsepower than I do. So with all due respect.
One would think.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else on PG&E? I think we were on legislative next. Unless someone has something on PG&E, I don't see any hands raised or anything. So we'll move on to legislative. Just any updates about the legislation or legislative process or anything of that nature when it comes to this project? I see everybody shaking their heads.
Other than what's already been discussed.
We've covered some of that project. So we'll move on. Actually, I'll open it up to the public real quick and give it a 3 count. 1, 2, 3. I don't see anything. Okay. Item 10, project funding, which I think we covered too, but I'll just leave it out for, nope, don't see anything. Anybody from the public that has any questions about project funding? Peter has something.
We raised the subject sometime back, and I think I'd like to follow up. And the idea is that there be somewhere in the budget something that's specific to this project, as opposed to being kind of expenditures tossed in different parts of the budget, so that you can't see. That the objective being that for decision makers, at least ways in my experience, it's really helpful to know what a particular project is going to cost in terms of administrative costs, as well as the hammers and nails. And so in the county's budgeting process, that's I think what this idea or question was. Is there a way to put it in the county's budget so you can see at a glance what this project costs, what the sources of revenue, everything from the grant funds, as well as assessments that are paid by the owners in the project area, sale of excess properties, and so forth. That's I think what prompted this category.
So, Peter, if I could offer a little bit to that, everything that you seek can be found in Budget Unit 8109. That's the Watershed Protection District budget of water resources. So that's 8109. It has the budget we've submitted has the revenue number, so it has your grant funds in there. It has appropriations for the different components, abatements, the land purchases, things of that nature. I will say that, and I mean, I don't want to overstep here, but I will say that government accounting is and I don't know if it's by design, Peter, but it's challenging it's challenging to follow. I mean, it's challenging to put them together. And I've been doing this for a while, and I think that the forms and things that we submit to administration are pretty self-supporting. They stand on their own. Unfortunately, a lot of the information that we submit to administration gets absorbed and condensed and collated into the budget book that gets put out for the public is a condensed version of that. And a lot of the detail and a lot of the things that you've asked for or you're suggesting are in there. They're just not as detailed as one would like to see them, but they're in there.
Thank you. That's good. Appreciate it.
And if you, I will make this offer, and I would prefer to not, make a public thing out of this. But if there's ever a time that you want to come by the office and sit down for half an hour, I'll walk through what we call Form A, which is a document that we submit to admin that has a summary of things. And it just, I think it would be helpful for you to see the process that we go through in the development of that. And you'll, I think we'll be able to answer your questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? I think, Robert, did you have your hand up earlier? Nope.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, just to make sure, as far as with the budget, just making sure that, as far as I think with the cultural resources that are in the area, that was there a line item that's actually for that to be a part of the project? Or is that something, because I heard somebody mentioned earlier that, hey, we're going to, when we go through Army Corps, that, Army Corps, and I think Peter said it, that Army Corps wasn't going to pay for anything. They're just there to make sure that the requirements that are met, right? And so I think when it comes down to making sure that those requirements are, whether it's, site protection or, whatever's going to happen on the waterway, is that, being done through the grant? And is there, I guess, a budget that we can take a look at? And maybe that's probably the same question that he had for us to be able to take a look at the budget.
And the current grant that we have is for property acquisition.
Okay.
And so once we get to the next step, if there's more funding available, or if that's automatically what the Army Corps pays for, because we are only supposed to pay, I forget what the percentage is, like 25% or something like that, of the entirety of the construction design. If they pay for the rest, I couldn't tell you right off the head, but each step will have different funding sources and different requirements for us to make sure that we check off.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would echo that we to be honest with you, I don't believe we've gotten to the point that you're talking about. We're still in property acquisition, and we're going to be a little ways away from doing design work and the type of 404 permitting that you're talking about.
Well, that's good for the tribes to know that we're at that early of a stage, because if there's anything that we would like to be as a part of the engineering process, is if there's any resources that are in the area that we can either try to, best apply, I guess, some of the things that we need to do to have set in place, making sure that, none of those resources are destroyed. So good to know.
And that's important to all of us on this committee. So we definitely don't want to overstep that step at all.
Cool. Appreciate it.
All right. So project funding is, any other questions or concerns on that?
Coming back on the 27th.
All right. Hearing none, we'll go on to Caltrans, and I think we covered that as well, talking about PG&E in that same process. So I'll leave it open if there's any questions.
I'll reach out to Rex Jackman again to make sure who our contact needs to be. Maybe it's Jamie, I'm not quite sure. But just to kind of make sure that they're still aware we're working on the project, and that eventually there will be some collaboration with the Army Corps to engineer what needs to happen on Highway 20 in order for this project to get completed.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. If there's not anything else, I don't see any hands raised, we'll move to public expression, item 12. If there's any public expression, go ahead and allow you to speak for 3 minutes, and then go from there. All right, not hearing anything, we'll move on to item 13, non-timed items. First being 13.1, discussion on how our meetings will be held from here forward, in person or Zoom, or both. I'm not sure exactly what we're looking at, but I don't know who wants to take the lead on this one.
My suggestion is that we continue as is. I think it's been very easy. We do get a decent amount of the public showing up to take interest in the topic. The room that we have typically available to us, I don't think would function in a hybrid model. And I don't want to use up more staff time to do a meeting in the chamber where now we're using IT personnel to help us with the hybrid stuff. I think this works. I think this is a smaller committee than some of the others that do require a hybrid model. So I think we continue as is. I'm comfortable with this.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I would like to, as a microbiology professor, I would like to second that.
All right. It looks like we have two that agree. And then Peter, are you okay with it? Because I'm good with it. I think this is very effective. We get more people here. I know a lot of people have to travel to Lakeport in order to get into one of our rooms, and that would sometimes be, and then we get the people that are in parcel acquisition that come in as well. And so this kind of gives us more of a more broader span to collect people. So I'm good with it as well. Peter, go ahead.
I agree entirely. I like it. I like not spending the money on the fuel. I like not, anyway. It's a lot
Being
more
in a small
comfortable.
room with a lot of people.
Are there any objections to it? Because I'm not hearing any. And then anyone from the public have any input or insight they would like to add to this item or topic? All right, not hearing any. We'll move on to 13.2, Middle Creek Meetings video recordings on YouTube. Just, I guess that's just stating that if after we're finished, because these are recorded, we can bring them on. Go ahead, Cherish.
I'd actually like to share my screen. That way I can just kind of show you. I curated a YouTube page for water resources, and let's see if I can make it bigger here.
Oh.
So this is our Lake County Water Resources Department YouTube page. It has, we're trying to do multiple things, but the Middle Creek Restoration Project is here. I created a little background so that each one kind of looks the same, but different days. So all of this is on here. I started from January. I don't know if I'd be able to go back and do previous ones, but as of January 4th on, all of this is on the YouTube page. And this is also linked onto our county website as well. Each video is up here as well.
Very good job. Thank you.
Wow.
You're
Wow.
welcome.
So now we can say refer to March 1st on YouTube. Something
Absolutely.
of that nature. Yep. Thank you very much. Very good.
No problem.
Very good.
Makes me realize I need to behave a little bit better.
Me too. On film. Oh boy.
Excellent. All right. Any other?
So, well, I think you're down to setting the next meeting, and then you're going to adjourn, and perhaps this is a good opportunity, considering Cherish just shared her screen and some of the wonderful things that she's been doing. I hope I don't embarrass her, but I would like to let everyone know that Cherish has accepted a position down in our HR department. It's a tremendous advancement for her and an opportunity for her. While we're saddened to see somebody of Cherish's character and ability leave our department, we are certainly excited for her and this new opportunity and new opportunity for growth. And as you can see, she is a wonderful, talented person here and does great work. And we're certainly going to miss her. We're glad that she's moving to HR, because now we've got an inside plant in the HR department, which has historically been a troublesome department to deal with. I'm teasing a little bit, but
Now we're recorded.
We just like to thank you, Cherish, for everything that you've done. You've been the face of DPW and water resources, and I've been extremely proud to to know that you're the first person that people deal with when they come to visit us, and we're going to miss you. But thank you very much for everything you've done.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Congratulations.
that's great.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bittersweet, bittersweet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very.
yeah.
Where am I gonna get my weather information from?
Oh, you'll still get it, just not for me.
It's my wake up early morning email.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you again, Cherish. We appreciate all the work you've done, and we wish you, the best on your future endeavors. And looking forward to the good work you'll do in HR. So,
Thank you.
all right.
Awesome.
So we have August 2nd. Everyone's on board with that. Obviously, it's already noted, so I think we're all good with that.
Yep.
And in between, I think we know what we have to do, what we discussed on the side to get ready for that meeting for this month. So again, everyone, thank you. This is a good meeting. I appreciate all of the insight and the work that everyone's done. And we will see you next month. And thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Adios.
Adios.
Thanks, everybody.